Hey everyone, this is Mason, and you're listening to the HerbRally podcast. This episode is yet another edition of the Herbalist Hour, and this time I'm joined by Robin Rose Bennett. I have long admired Robin's work, so it was a true honor to have her join me on the show. We chat about what she was like as a kiddo, her path to herbalism, what a green witch is, quote unquote, bibliomancy. I really enjoyed that conversation. Her new book, Practices for Connecting with the Moon, and a whole lot more. And just FYI, her new book is called A Green Witch's Pocketbook of Wisdom, which we chat a lot about in the show, where we actually delve into a few excerpts from the book. And then Robin Rose kind of explains more about what she was writing about. So also, before we get into the show, I want to say a huge thank you to Oshala Farm, who is the Herbalist Hour's presenting sponsor. They are an organic farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow over 80 medicinal plants. So if you're looking to buy U.S. domestically grown organic herbs, look no further than OshalaFarm.com. And when you help support them, you're directly helping support the Herbalist Hour and HerbRally. So we really appreciate it. And for bonus points, if you place an order through OshalaFarm.com, in the notes section of your order, if you say you found out about Oshala Farm through us, that would be greatly appreciated. So that's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much to Robin Rose for joining me on the show. Thanks to y'all for listening, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. Take care.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today, I'm really excited to have on Robin Rose Bennett. I've really admired her work for a very long time now. So welcome to the show, Robin.
Thanks, Mason. And I love to tell you that just that moment, a little hummingbird flew right by my window.
Perfect timing. I don't know if you know this or not, but I first met you, I want to say, at the Portland Plant Medicine Gathering, and you did the keynote. This was back in 2014, and you actually signed your book for me, The Gift of Healing Herbs, one of your books. And actually, at the time, I was having herbalists sign their books to my daughter. So this is like one of 30 books probably that Amelia has. So it says, to Amelia Sage.
Amelia Sage.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for that. You have a newer book coming out, which we're going to talk about a little later on. But for now, I'd like to get to know Robin a little bit more. Hey, Robin, what were you like as a kiddo?
I was extremely shy. I know, it's hard to believe, right?
Totally.
I was extremely shy and very kind of held in, really self-conscious. And maybe part of it was because I was like old when I was young. Like I just had knowings and things that I had no context for and no idea what to do with. But having said that, people from childhood have told me, I didn't know you were so insecure. I didn't know you were so shy. So, you know, I'm not sure how I came off, but that's how I felt inside. And I just kind of loved to play. I loved games. I loved kickball and tetherball and you know, all that. I liked playing. And now I like playing again.
It's all come full circle. Do you think that you became less shy because you felt like you had this passion to teach people? So you felt compelled that you had to be kind of more outgoing?
Partially, and, you know, and partially just gaining experience and beginning to be less obsessed with what anyone thought about me, or allowing myself to make mistakes and not being so harsh, you know, on myself. And then I remember vividly at one point just decide I was traveling, and I'd been traveling with my best friend. I was 19 and I was still pretty shy then and still pretty insecure then. And and then she went home and I decided to continue traveling by myself. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to make a single friend. I'm not going to talk to anyone. And I remember very consciously making a decision to pretend that I wasn't shy. Like no one knows me. And so that was kind of my first experiment in stepping into like a bigger, a fuller expression of myself. And also I got into theater, and that helped immensely, right? Because I'm putting myself out there. But so all of the above, but I think I could net it down to saying, the commitment to become my real self kind of brought me out. And at the same time, honestly, I still love alone time. I love quiet. I love silence. So I am a both and, like most of us are, you know.
I could definitely relate. So, do you kind of ascribe to the whole "fake it till you'll make it" type of philosophy then?
Sometimes
Yeah.
if it expands your story and allows you to come more fully into yourself, then yeah, even things like if someone says, oh, it's so, here's a common one, right? It's really hard for me to ask for help.
Mm.
And like there, a place like fake it till you make it can be really, pretend it's easy. Pretend it's a natural thing. Or one thing I love, and I learned this, I got this first idea from astrologer Caroline Casey. She said, yet. It's,
Mm.
or until now, right? It's been hard for me to ask for help until now, right? So whatever combination of those things that helps you to more fully be who you really are, and less less hung up on trying to be something you think you need to be to fit in, or trying to be, goddess forbid, perfect, uh, or or just being overly concerned with the opinions of others and trying to fit in. It's more about claiming yourself is so important. Yeah. And then you
Wise words.
naturally find where you belong. So that comes back to what you said about finding like my path, finding where I belonged, right? That obviously that does help everything.
I too was a incredibly shy person, and for the longest time I was like, I'm going to have a podcast, and then I did have a podcast, but for the first 5 years of my podcast, all of the episodes were other people's recordings, mainly because I had this like insecurity about actually putting myself out there and being a host, because I never looked at myself as like, say, a host per se. I was always more like the behind the scenes type of person, because I was very insecure and whatnot. And I was like, the only way to get experience at this thing called interviewer is by actually doing it. So I'm so thankful that I finally actually ended up doing it. And I guess in some sense of the word, I was faking it till I make it. But like, I'm having more fun now with HerbRally than I ever have playing
Yeah,
host.
and you are good at it, and
Oh,
I'm
thanks.
glad that I think it's harmful to push ourselves, but it's healing to stretch ourselves.
Perfect. Yeah. Well said.
Thanks.
So at 19, you said you were, in a new location, trying to make friends and whatnot. You started doing theater and whatnot. When did you start your, like, say, Green Witch path, or when did you start getting into herbalism and whatnot?
Well, interestingly, I started getting into herbal medicine. Let's see, I was already deeply into like my spiritual path. And I was pretty young still when I started herbal medicine. I started looking for help with herbs when I was about, let's see, 20, I think. Yeah, I was about maybe 19, 20. It was when I came home from those world travels. I grew up on the East Coast. I moved out to Northern California to continue college. I had been to other colleges before my travels, and then came out west. And there I was in the Mecca of Northern California and everything groovy, right? And so I went to my first herbalist, and that really is the thing that started me, even though what my experience with the herbs that I took and he gave was they were undrinkable, they tasted awful. And yet, there was that little magic thing happening that led me to the next thing, which led me to the next thing, which led me. So, and it's been unfolding ever since. Yeah, ever since then. So,
Did you end up going to the California School of Herbal Studies?
I did not. I was at the University of California in Santa Cruz then.
Gotcha.
And then when I graduated, it was a degree in creative writing, actually, because really I am a writer. who's also an herbalist. I'm not an herbalist who's writing books only because I want to get my herbal info out. Like the writing is just, if not as much my soul work, more my soul work.
Mhm.
It's really yeah, it's what I must do. And as far as being an herbalist, I must be with the plants and make my medicines and this and that. As far as teaching about them, it's well, who knows, right? It's been a beautiful path to date, but the writing is really the heart and soul, central to me. And then I'm sorry, I got lost in my own thing. Asking
You're
me
good.
about teaching. No, what did you ask
Oh,
me?
just like when you kind of got into herbalism and that whole path.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So that's what I was going to say when I moved back from the West Coast, and I actually I think got the correspondence course from Michael Tierra, and I had a wonderful stint with Dr. John Moore, the hobo herbologist of Harlem. He was quite a character, and I remember I did my first 10 years of as an herbal teacher in downtown Manhattan. Right, that's where the nickname the Green Witch of New York came from. Right, that has stuck even though it's been decades I've lived in Manhattan. But yeah, so I was an herbalist in and taking people into Central Park and Prospect Park and Inwood Park, and really even I did my very first weed walk around like a square city block from where I lived on 14th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. For those listening who know New York City, you'll know this is not like a plant laden part of the city. This is a very trafficked, commercial, no trees, or at least it was then, right? But I did one square loop and found, I don't know, 30 medicinal plants. At one point, I remember, speaking about confidence and stretching into yourself, honestly, I don't know when I would have ever taught my first medicine class if my best friend hadn't come. Lisa flew in from Los Angeles and literally wrote the flyers and addressed the envelopes with me and said, "You are doing this. You are sending it out." And that's how I came to teach my very first class in my apartment in Manhattan. And I always remember that it snowed. I was like, really? It snowed. I have a plant walk plan. And I remember taking a paper cup, like a coffee cup from the diner, and like going to the diner, getting the cup and digging out where I had seen chickweed, when I was scouting the walk days before. And there it was in full flower under the snow. And everybody was like, wow. So yeah, so fun, fun. And so yeah, I really did my first 10 years as an herbalist in the heart of the city.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Green Witch of Manhattan, so I'm glad you brought that up. And I also got to say, Lisa's a good friend. She helped you stretch outside of your comfort zone. I did want to ask you, I've never heard of this hobo herbalist of Harlem. Can you tell us more about that person?
Yeah, he was well known in his own, community, and he was a guy from the South, I believe, and he had a store that was famous back in the day called the Wisdom Tree, and I think it was in Georgia, but then he opened it, or he and others opened it, that I'm not sure, in Harlem, New York, and we're now talking about like in the 80s. It may have been open before that, but that's when I became aware, was in the mid 80s. So I've been doing this a little while now, Mason.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so Dr. John Moore, and I have even some of his, not books, but like big, thick booklets. And he kind of went all over in terms of, everything from iridology to herbal to very spiritual. And yeah, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And then it was Susan Weed who taught me that I could learn from the plants themselves. Right. So that is all of these, formative influences are very important, and probably most important. And I would venture to guess you agree, but I'll ask you, is that the kinship is with the plants, and through the plants with all of nature has been the most beautiful, unexpected side effect, if you will, of coming to herbs for physical healing and just having this whole world of relationship open. It's extraordinary, right?
Well said. And yeah, it just reminds me of getting into herbs in my early 20s. My first relationship with herbs and herbalism was in dried, cut and sifted herbs in mason jars on shelves, which is great. You know, I think that's an intro for a lot of people. But it wasn't until I took my first herbal apprenticeship where we actually went into the old growth forests in Oregon at the Columbine School of Botanical Studies. And we sat down with the flowers with our loops and looked at tiny flowers in the old growth forest, and you start seeing through like the quote unquote wall of green, and you start developing these strong relationships with all these plants and their natural habitat. It totally blew my mind, and like you said, it's extraordinary. It's so much beyond a relationship with dried, cut and sifted herbs in mason jars.
In Mason's jars.
Yes, that's right. I have an appropriate name.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. And even when I came back from my first apprenticeship, I got a job in a well-known herb shop in the city, Aphrodisia Herbs. They also had like a big mail order kind of place in Brooklyn. But I was in the West Village, in Greenwich Village, Greenwich Village, whichever you want to say.
See.
And I remember like going up to the herbs in the jars and whispering to them, if you weren't harvested with respect and gratitude, I'm sorry, and know that I am receiving you with that. And I thought, well, I mean, that was kind of a great practice to just start that process of connecting where I could. And I did come home from the apprenticeship and like go out to the parks and say, oh my God, I didn't learn anything. Everything just looks green. How am I ever going to know one plant from another? And it takes time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It takes time and dedication and devotion. But again, I came into herbs really just looking for answers to health problems, or at least consciously, right? Because 10 years into being a practicing herbalist and herbal teacher, I learned that my mother's grandmother, Esther, had been a renowned herbalist.
Wow.
For her, I presume for mostly her Russian Jewish community in Brooklyn, though I don't know that for a fact that it was limited. That's an educated guess. But when I learned that she had been that, I said, oh, you mean she helped the family? And my great uncle, Max, said, no, there would be lines waiting for her. I'm like, oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this was 10 years in. So I love that just this little bit of our conversation, what we're saying to people listening is that you could be in the streets of Manhattan and you could be in the old growth forest, right, up in Oregon, and you can enter into this ever expansive kinship with the natural world through these generous beings we call plants.
I just interviewed Asia Suler. I'm not sure if you're aware of her work or not, but
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was talking about also living in New York City, and she would hang out with the trees at the city park and start to create altars around the trees, and people would be fascinated by that and come up to her and talk to her about it, and then start maybe sometimes even participating in it. And yeah, like you said, no matter where you're at, you could build relationships with the nature around you.
Yeah, she gave me a great compliment a short while ago. She told me that my book, Healing Magic, Greenwich Guidebook to Conscious Living, helped her know that it was possible for her to become this brilliant, well, she didn't say that. I'm saying that.
She is, though.
Yeah, she is. That
very much so.
Yes. So I was very, very touched and honored, really, to receive that compliment. And in fact, she endorsed the pocketbook, the new book that you'll talk about whenever you get to that.
Yeah, we're chugging along here. We're almost there, actually. I actually was hoping you could define what a green witch is.
Well, I can define what a green witch is to me.
Oh, please. Yeah. Well said.
Okay. So a green witch is a person who is engaged with the magic of nature, particularly through the green world, through the plant people, the trees, the plants, the seaweeds, the mosses. And so a green witch can be an herbalist, right? I mean, I think, first of all, I just think it's an affectionate term for an herbalist, a
Yeah,
green witch. And it's been applied probably more to women, but it's for anybody.
totally.
And but it's one who not only knows that everyone, can we say, in nature is sentient, but that is also like in engaged with that sentience. And I like to think that a green witch can be an herbalist, but a green witch could also enact their magic through their art, right? Or be they could be a green witch doctor, or they could be a green witch writer, or a green witch, gardener, anything, right? So it's not just an herbalist. It's more open than that, I think. So that's how I see it.
Love it. Well, it's a nice segue because, yeah, you are, when we're releasing this episode next week, your book will be out. And dear listener, please go pre-order because pre-ordering books really helps the authors out. So Robin Rose Bennett has a new book coming out. It's called A Green Witch's Pocket Guide. Did I get that right?
Pocketbook.
Pocketbook of Wisdom, which looks
Big Little
fascinating.
Life Tips. Thank you.
Yeah,
Pocketbook of Wisdom, Big Little Life Tips.
absolutely. And I kind of want to go in depth. There's a few excerpts that I got off of online, and I was hoping we could kind of expound upon that. But before we do that, maybe talk a little bit about the book, the inspiration to writing it. And I also would hope that you could throw in the definition of what bibliomancy is, because I thought that was really neat how you put that in the intro.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So the inspiration for writing the book is really understanding through my work with so many people over so long that that we need tools, we need guidance in order to navigate this thing called life on Earth, and particularly now in this time that is so pivotal and so evolutionary, right? I think of it as the evolutionary chaos of now. And when you're in a time of chaos, because transformation is in progress, which is messy, like a birth is messy, then you need maps. So what I thought about and did over, I don't know, maybe 7 years or so of writing it was cull down to the essence, the teachings that have withstood the test of time for me. And that as I've shared them with others, they've helped so many others. So they're both from my original spiritual work that I did for about 10 years before I really became an herbal teacher, and from the herbal world. So it's earthy, and it's transcendent and immanent. Immanent meaning referring to the spirit in everything that's manifest. That's another beautiful word that editors kept correcting when I wrote. They said, "Do you mean imminent, like it's just about to happen?" I'm like, "No, imminent with an A means
Mm,
within the stone, within the dandelion." So the pocketbook is like a 4x6 book, because I love to have a little book that I can open like every day and ask for a message about something, or just like general guidance for the day, guidance for this conversation, whatever it is. And that's bibliomancy. So I've practiced bibliomancy for far longer than I knew it had a name, right? And so that's what I just described. You take any book, you open it up, asking for a message. I mean, some people maybe get into a deep state of meditation before that. Maybe other people just open it, and yeah, and see what's there for you. And I have found with the pocketbook, it's been uncanny. And that's like so much fun, right? It's whether I've used it for a client, or in a class, or again for a conversation online like this. So I think I answered your question. So it's,
absolutely.
oh, I didn't say it's beautifully illustrated.
I was going to ask you about the illustrator. Yeah.
Yeah, Gail Stoughton is a local to me artist, and she just does the most beautiful kind of shamanic paintings, and I had her do this very, very, very simply in pencil. So they're black and white, but they're so evocative, like, because each page has like basically a 1 or 2 lines of wisdom and then a little bit of explanatory paragraph. I wasn't going to do the explanatory, but then people I showed the book to early on said, you have to, you have, you must, you can't just leave it at that. People need a little bit more. And so, what I also saw, Mason, was that even like I started this before the height of COVID hit and all of that, but I saw that these are the things that have stood the test of time through really difficult things, through personal losses in my life that were devastating. My partner got ill and passed about 10, 11 years ago out of the blue. And then, through the height of COVID years, I wish I could say through the years as if it was over, but we don't know yet what's going on. These teachings have held up, just like herbalism has held up in a big way, right? Through COVID, through helping people regain health. So I wanted to share them because they work. They work if we work with them.
Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy. That's one thing I love about your teachings is you always infuse story, but then also like your philosophy and everything into your writing as well. So it's not just like, herbalism at its, simplest form, but yeah, I always love hearing your stories and everything. So thank you for sharing. Yeah. And you said that readers were hoping you could, what would you say, like have the initial sentence, but then even more of an explanatory paragraph or so afterwards. So what we're going to do here, if you don't mind, I'll read the opening sentence and then the paragraph, and then maybe you could even talk a little bit more about that. So we'll go even deeper.
Okay.
That'd be great. And again, I got these off the internet. So this one is open to, and you know what else I was going to say, for those watching on YouTube, I'll try to get some of the pictures of some of the beautiful artwork and throw it up on the screen as well.
Okay.
Like in post edit. Yep, totally.
I can help you with that. Yeah.
Awesome. So this first one here is open to magic. As you open yourself to seek and discover the magic of life, you'll find it is everywhere. You'll become a magnet for helpful synchronicity. Magic will find you.
So you want a story that goes with that?
Yeah, or maybe just expound upon it a little bit more. I really like that one.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, any number of years ago, I don't know how many, I metaphorically went through every dictionary and crossed out the word coincidence and decided I no longer believe in it. I don't believe in random coincidence. I think it's synchronicity. And the more, if you're, we're been rather shamed out of a animistic worldview, right? Like if your next door neighbor sees you talking to a bird, you might be embarrassed, right? Or we've been shamed out of this living relationship. So, and yet, if we do as we do, open, like to me, reality is magic, right? So as we open to the magic of reality, we become more open to perceive it, right? One of my first teachers used to say, if I hadn't believed it, I wouldn't have seen it, right? Because we have this great ability to filter out what messes with our worldview, right? Unless we consciously challenge that. So, but just, I do have a little story, an example. I really wanted to go out dancing this past weekend because this band I loved, Uncle Shoehorn's funky band, was playing. And nobody I knew wanted to go out dancing. And finally, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go by myself. And that took a little bit of, courage on my part to go out dancing by myself. It was a Saturday night. And I went, and within a short while, not only had I met some cool people, but I met somebody who was doing plant healing work with kids on the spectrum
Mm,
in a school about an hour and a half south of me, right? And, just like a kindred,
yeah.
basically, right? And so I think that's opening to magic, like just starting to being daring something and then talking to somebody. But it could be, it could be anything. Does that, give a
That's
little
fantastic.
context?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. The real world, in quotes, is found in nature's ongoing cycles of transformation. And then you go on, get real. Wherever you live, attune to the underlying reality of nature. Everything and everyone is coming to be and passing away, cycling the birth, growth, decay, death, and rebirth. Become aware of the rhythms of the seasons, the rising and setting of the sun, the waxing and waning of the moon, the tides of the oceans.
Yeah, and so this goes back to like being a green witch in New York City or any other, right, major city, right? Is you can still look up and find the moon,
Yeah.
right? You can look down and find the Artemisia growing up through the cracks in the sidewalk or where white sage, whatever it is where you live. And people often, again, here's this issue of shaming, or scorning, yeah, it's just what keeps coming to me about this, like, oh, get real,
Yeah.
get real. Even if it could be, what do you mean taking, bones that can help you if you have a respiratory infection? Get real, you need an antibiotic. Or get real, why would you think that if you ask, whatever you call spirit, right? God, goddess, all it is, whatever, the creator, Tao,
Mm,
if you ask for, an opportunity you're looking for to come, you think that makes any difference, right? Whatever it is. So, um, yeah, yeah. So as you are getting real, it also makes you more, I have found has made me more, um, resilient to stay in touch with the truth of nature, the seasons, the cycles, the watching how the spring turns to summer or how the moon goes from full bright back to dark, because I'm part of nature. And I don't think that everything that's true for me is true for everyone, but certain essential things like that are
yeah.
essential things like that are true for everyone. It's still, that's the real world,
Yeah.
right? Not the world of commerce or the world of, dominator culture thinking. That's not the real world. Um, and so those of us who can see that have also a responsibility, I feel, to speak to it, to hold the vision of the possible by getting back into what's real, what's really real.
Well said. All right. One more if you're
Okay,
game. All right.
I am.
This is maybe my favorite one. You are sacred. There is only one you. You matter. You count. You add to the whole. The world would not be the same without you in it.
Yeah. This is such a vital, vital message for people. It doesn't matter the sphere of your influence, whether you are really just home in your family or out wide speaking to millions of people. You matter. Everybody matters. And I often liken it, Mason, to a wheel,
Mm,
and we're each a spoke, right, on the wheel. And without all the spokes, the wheel wobbles. The wheel doesn't turn as well. And I know, I mean, in the deepest knowing place in myself, I know that the more of us who remember and live as who we really are, um, the more we come together and can shift the destructive, systems into new ways of being on the planet that are based in in caring for everyone,
Yeah.
right? And when I say everyone, I don't just mean the humans either,
Yeah.
right? Caring for everyone, the mountains, the waters, the insects, the land. I mean, death is part of life. It doesn't mean everything has to stay alive forever. That's not the point. But if you know you matter, then you will naturally come to express your gifts, and we all need them. We need everybody like waking up. That's what it's time for. And I did a bibliomancy just for fun while you were doing yours. I opened to,
Mm.
because it so fits with this last one. Relax into becoming your authentic self.
Mm.
Be yourself. Expressing who you really are inside will bring you greater contentment and benefit those with whom you share yourself. And we live in cultures where um, we're really told to like compare ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just such an energy suck, and it's such a joy suck to do that, right? Because you're not that other person, but you
Yeah.
do have your own magic, your own path to walk. And I love how the plants help with that, because the plants just do. They know who they are. We take them into us, or we sit with the oak tree or the dandelion, and they help us know who we are. And we can start anywhere. We can start you know, drinking pine because we have a little cough, right? But its spirit medicine is still gonna be translated to us, and pine is also the tree of peace, right? So it's going to help us come to more inner peace. The plants do their thing however we enter into it.
I really love that last message. Yeah, it reminds me of when I was younger and say shy. I used to wish to be older, which I don't know, I can't quite recall, but I feel like you said something kind of similar. But I remember thinking I can't wait to be an old person because I'd give less shits, because I gave a lot of shits. I was incredibly anxious all the time. And now that I am getting older, one thing I've noticed that has helped me become much more happy and fulfilled is I'm kind of going back to a lot of the things that I liked as a child. Go figure, so that like sense of play and wonder is coming back. So I just really appreciated that last one.
Yeah, I mean, and it's absolutely true that is what happens, right? You more self-aware, less self-conscious,
Yeah.
more interested in pleasing yourself
Yeah.
than pleasing others.
Right.
And I remember, and indigenous wisdom and green witch wisdom often I find are very, very braided, very akin. And
Yeah.
I remember Kiwe Denokwe saying that, talking about early training of the children, and having like basically the various like jobs. I can't think of the right word, right? The jobs that people do, and having them kind of in a circle, and the little children, like 2 and 3 years old, you're going around, and the adults simply observing what
Mm.
they were drawn to. Oh, this one was drawn to the tools, this one was drawn to the baskets, this one was drawn to the medicines, this one, because it's true what you said, when we are little, right, we do naturally reveal
Mm.
who we are inside. And I found an old movie from when I was, I don't know, maybe I was 2, maybe I was a little less, and I'm running up to the camera, right? It was I guess it was an 8 millimeter then, right? I'm running up to the camera and holding up, and it takes up the whole camera face, a dandelion
Mm.
flower. And I thought, so I have no sense of being like connected to plants or caring about it. And there, maybe I was.
I love that. That reminds me of when I was younger too. Also pre like fascination with herbalism. I would try to blow the dandelion seeds everywhere to try to help spread them.
Oh, see, you knew. And
I
our
guess
bodies
so.
are great truth tellers. Our bodies really do reveal. And this is something I can just say as a really general thing. It just comes to me to share with you who are listening and here with us, either live or later,
Yeah.
right? Is learn to listen to your body, because that is a very good barometer of what's true for you or not true for you. Like how something that's said lands in you, how it feels, how it resonates. And the other gift of that is it helps us all to come home to being in our bodies, which for me was definitely a journey. I was absolutely more, in the ethers and spiritual and the old soul who would come in, right? I was
Right.
like, oh, I don't know if I want to be here. It's sort of hard and messy and people are mean and unity, all that stuff. And then, and I mean, I say it lightly, but it didn't feel light at the time, right?
Yeah.
I was in my head. Right? I was in my head a lot more of the time than I was in my body. And then the plants brought me home to being in a body, which was like a really big thing that I had no expectation of at the time. And that is where joy lies. That is where, like, you can have spiritual highs, but sustainable joy comes when you can come home and really walk in your body on the earth so that you're physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual without any hierarchy among them. So if I was grateful to, like, if I had to pick one thing that I was the most grateful to the plants for over everything, it would be this joy.
Love
And
that.
health
Yeah.
too. I'm going to say health is a really big gift. But
Yeah.
living with joy was just, honestly, it wasn't something that I thought would be something I would have.
Yeah.
In that real solid, sustainable way. And then I bet you found this too, Mason, because you're in touch with so many people that working, like learning to be in relationship with the plants then translates over to your relationships with humans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they become juicier too.
Yeah. I love the herbal community for that reason. That's a bunch of funky, cool, in touch people.
Eccentric,
Yeah.
diverse, diverse,
Multi-talented.
Multi-talented, artistic, so and fun, and
That's
kind
right.
of fun. And yet, it's the full spectrum, right? The full spectrum.
So thank you for sharing all that. So I love how we, brought up that word bibliomancy, and I kind of feel like, is that when someone purchases your book and gets it, is that kind of what you hope they do? Is they flip through the book with the intention set, and then they kind of just sit with the phrase and kind of just kind of do what we did just there, kind of just, how does this how do I internalize this?
Yeah, I mean, my thought is that if everybody will just be true to who they are, maybe they'll just read through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Or they'll use it in this oracular way that we're talking about as an oracle. And then I think that if there's something that really speaks to you, that makes you stop or weep or something, that maybe you're going to choose to pick a period of time you want to work with that, right? It could just be like a daily, but it could also be like, hey, for, from spring equinox to summer solstice, I'm going to practice this and see what that brings to me or opens in me. So I look forward to hearing the creative ways that people do want to either work with this book, or how you want to read it is up to you. Like, getting it into your hands and you discovering what feeds you is up to you. So I don't know that I hope people use it as an oracle, but I think it lends itself to that, and that a lot of these teachings, I'm not like standing on any pedestal. These are the practices that I have used, do use, and will always use, because it's always a practice, right? Everything is a practice. And so I just hope they serve people, and readers find the ways that, even if only one page out of all of them or one illustration served to, liberate some aspect of a person, or wake up something, or give permission, right? To give permission for some part to come alive, then I'll be very gratified.
So you use the word oracular. Do I recall correctly, on your one of your websites, you have like a giveaway for a tarot reading if there's a pre-order? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So if you are, so here's my thank yous. My thank yous are the following. If you pre-order the book in the month of October, there's a form to fill out on my site, Robin Rose Bennett Books, that will then give you a link to download a beautiful booklet, a PDF, a digital booklet of herbal recipes for meditation, dreams, and deepening intuitive wisdom. They're really they're really good, beautiful variety of recipes, um, and my apprentice designed the booklet. It's gorgeous. And then, in terms of what you just said, anyone, if you choose to review a Green Witch's Pocketbook, and there's instructions written out, right? But basically, if you review the book by November 25th, and tag me and let me know on Instagram, then you will get entered into a contest to win a free tarot reading with me. And I'll pick the winner on my birthday, which is November 26th, which is why you have until the 25th. So there's longer amount of time to get entered into the tarot contest if that calls you. And whether it does or not, of course, good reviews are super helpful too.
Yeah, please leave reviews all over wherever you purchase your books. So, so you do have a new website. I want to say it's robinrosebennettbooks.com. Did I get that correct?
Exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. You also have robinrosebennett.com.
Yeah, and that's where people can come and if you want to stay connected with me, sign up for my newsletter. It's right on the homepage. And just to say, my newsletter is not just like an ad. I really focus worth your time on providing valuable content, and then reminders of links like to a podcast like this. Right.
Awesome. I'm on the newsletter, so go sign up to the newsletter. Did you say where that was? Is that on robinrosebennett.com?
robinrosebennett.com. Right.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, I feel like I'd be remiss. Actually, I want to say Asia, when I interviewed her, she said you might be a good person to ask this. So if you got time for maybe a couple more questions, do you have any practices or rituals that you can share for developing a relationship with the moon?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
let's hear one. Yeah. Amanda, my wife, would really love to hear that too. So
so I'm just going to take 1 second and say, yeah, this book, the longest chapter in it is moon magic.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, but yeah, for me, the practice I've done the most consistently in the last 35 years is setting intention at the new moon.
Yeah.
And practicing that intention as the moon. So the practice. I also have a moon meditation people can download from my site that can be helpful. But essentially, it's this, and it's written out in the book. Essentially, though, it's simply this: go into meditation right around the time of the new moon, which happens every single month. Right? It has to be guided towards something it's time for you, a practice, right? It could be an inward thing, an outward thing, and then do it, right? And then practice that intention. And so it's a really cool thing, because what you want to do is you want to grow this practice as much as you can. And it's only 2 weeks until the full moon. So you bring it to whatever degree of fullness it is. I'm going to just throw out any example. Let's say your intention is, I'm going to speak up for myself. Let's just imagine somebody's challenged with that. And so you bring it to whatever degree of fullness you can by that full moon. And maybe you realize it's full moon and you've completely not done it at all, or maybe you've ventured into it a little, or maybe you've done it and whatever, be kind, be compassionate. And then at the full moon to the new moon, your work, if you will, is to integrate, like, whatever degree you've put it out into the world, how has that shifted you? How are you embodying that? And then in a way, like with the moon, I like to imagine that as the moon is going from brighter to darker, that light is a little bit coming into me each night, right? That there's less light there. It's because it's coming in and making that. And I say, practice the intention, something that you want to be working on, right? We could probably find a better word than working on, tending to. And then that will bring you all the way back to the next dark moon, right? The next seed planting time, right? So you plant a seed at the moon in your imagination, right? Then you let that little plant grow as much as it can up till the full moon. And then the second half again is embodying. Who am I, having practiced this? I mean, once I did a kind of funny one that was very revealing to me. It's not a typical one for me. I usually do more inward, but I just think this moon, my practice is I'm not going to interrupt anyone.
How'd that go?
Right? It was really telling how often I did.
Yeah.
So it was a beautiful practice in listening, right? And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've done so many over so many months, and it's a beautiful, so the work with the moon, I just couldn't recommend it more highly because it helps awaken your intuitive senses. Yeah. And it's like the solar is our outer connectedness, right? And the lunar is our inner, our inner telepathic, right, connection with each other and all things invisible, really.
Thank you for sharing. And dear listener, that's your homework. So come up with an intention. And when the new moon comes, try this exercise out that Robin Rose shared. Thank you. That was kind of a clunky way to end. We probably should have ended with like the newsletter and all that stuff. But dear listener, please go subscribe.
So you had 2 questions.
Oh, yeah. I guess I do. I guess there's still more that we could do. But
up to you.
No, I think that's a great place to wrap up, because otherwise I'm going to get you talking about plants, and that might be a whole nother hour. So
we'll just forever, right? Yeah, that's true. So I'll just say that I have been spending a lot of time with a sacred old grandfather oak tree for counsel, and that what I'm drinking right now is sassafras, elderberry, and black birch, and it's delicious.
I'm drinking a mixture of linden and marshmallow, which is also delicious. Gets me in the right headspace too. Beautiful.
Okay, we had to end with a plant.
That's right. Well, Robin, I'd love to have you on again. I got through about half my questions. So yeah, I just always love talking to you. You always bring so much wisdom. And yeah, please go pick up Robin's new book. This will be released, I want to say, the week before the pre-orders or the actual book is finally released, around the October 24th mark. So thank you once again, Robin Rose. Really appreciate you joining us on the Herbalist Hour.
Thanks, Mason. It's been a pleasure, and I really like talking to you, and that our conversation's been helpful.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone. And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the HerbRally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at HerbRally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from HerbRally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.